Matt Miller is a busy guy. He's a draft analyst for the mothership. He'll be part of the broadcast there on ESPN and ABC, kind enough to join us. How close are the top quarterback? Let's say the top four quarterbacks.
Yeah, pretty close. I think for me, Caleb Williams is far and away the best, and I think he's in a tier by himself. Jaden Daniels has separated himself over the last year, certainly, but definitely over the past few months, I think, as well. And then you have Drake May, who some people like a lot. JJ McCarthy, again, who some people really, really like. But I do think that they are much closer now than they were 4 months ago. Like the last time we saw these guys play football, they were not very closely ranked. What happens over the course of the process is guys interview well. JJ McCarthy's pro day was one of the best pro days that a quarterback has had in a couple processes and in the interview process. Also, teams fall in love with these guys, and that overinflates their stock a little bit. I think that's what we're seeing. If four of these quarterbacks go in the top six tomorrow night, and I think they will, then we're looking at another draft in which teams have fallen in love because we're in this model of you go up and get your guy or you wait for the next year. The second round quarterback kind of dead. Like the developmental quarterback is dead. You either get a top 10 pick or sometimes you get lucky with a Brock Purdy.
Where's the draft start?
I think it starts at 3. Caleb Williams is going to go first. That is the worst kept secret in the world right now. I feel very strongly Jaden Daniels goes number 2, but I think there is room. I don't know if they're top golfing in Detroit today, that maybe we can figure out exactly who's going to go number 2, but I feel good about Jaden Daniels going 2. I think they've smoothed over their differences. 3 is where it starts because New England could certainly stick and pick. They could take Drake May. They could run it back with another Michigan quarterback. Jim Harbaugh says Jay McCarthy is the greatest Michigan quarterback of all time. If you believe that, then you have to take him over Tom Brady. But I think 3 is where it starts because they could take one of those guys. They could do the kind of crazy thing and take Marvin Harrison Jr., who is, for a lot of people, the best player in this draft. Or they could trade back. And I think all those scenarios are certainly on the table. The hard thing with New England is we don't know who's really running the show there. Is it Jonathan Kraft? Is it Gerard Mayo? Is it Elliott Wolf? Is it kind of a consortium of people who are calling the shots there? So it makes it difficult to try to even know who to call and also to predict based on maybe what they've done historically.
I don't know if somebody's asked Jim Harbaugh this, but I would say, Jim, you love J.J. McCarthy. You really love him. Well, why don't you trade Justin Herbert, and then you'll get J.J. McCarthy on his rookie deal, and wouldn't that be better suited for building this team? How do you think he would answer that question?
I don't think he would. I think we would get I'm sure you remember San Francisco 49ers era Jim Harbaugh was a lot different than Michigan era Jim Harbaugh. You would get the most sarcastic answer after he stared and blinked at you for several seconds, making you feel like you're the dumbest person on earth. He's really calmed down in his old age. So I don't think you would answer, but that is a fair question. Hey, if McCarthy's this good, why not trade Herbert? And I'm sure his answer would be, some type of PR spin of he's the best in this draft, but Justin would be, the number one guy if he were in it. But I know there, early on those conspiracy theories definitely existed.
We're talking to Matt Miller, ESPN draft expert. Give me the team that could really turn this sideways. And maybe that's New England, but is there another team where you go, wow, that could really shake up the first round?
New England definitely is the one. I think the other right now is if the Minnesota Vikings don't trade up to get the quarterback. 6 weeks ago, they acquired the Houston Texans first round pick. That's number 23 overall. So they're sitting here right now, picks 11 and 23. No team has ever acquired a first round pick 6 weeks before the draft. It just doesn't happen unless it's in the top 3 and you're getting a quarterback. So they really signaled at that point, we're open for business. We have 2 first round picks. We want to go get a quarterback. If they don't do that, it would be, I think, very surprising, very risky. If you're Minnesota and you have the same grade on JJ McCarthy and Bo Nix, maybe you sit there at 11 and say, hey, if JJ doesn't make it to us, cool. We'll take a corner or a defensive tackle. And then at 23, we'll draft Bo Nix. It's risky, but you could certainly do that. And I think we saw this last year with Houston and Arizona being super aggressive, but also they played the board really well to get into the ideal positions to take their guys. And I'm very curious to see if we see copycats tomorrow night of teams that think, hey, we'll trade back a couple spots. And then if we need to, we'll just move back up. It's risky, but it makes it a lot of fun if it works.
And it feels like, once again, we have a plethora of wide receivers, like top end wide
Yeah.
receivers. But there are a lot of draft experts, scouts, who don't want to take a wide receiver in the top 5 or even top 10. Where do you stand on that?
I think if it's an elite prospect like Marvin Harrison Jr., then you do it. And I would put Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze up there as well. All three would have been the number one receiver last year, no matter how you had it ranked. They would have been drafted highly last year as well. I think guys like Zay Flowers and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison would be probably drafted in the late teens to early 20s this year, like they were last year. But their draft stock would stay about the same. So I get the argument of, hey, this is a position you can find value late first. Look at Justin Jefferson. You can find value in the second round. You have A.J. Brown and Deebo Samuel and Rashee Rice last year had a huge year for the Chiefs as a second round pick. So you could certainly find that value in round 2. I think when it's a transcendent player, like Jamar Chase was, when you can get a player like that, it's worthy of the top 10 pick. But you certainly hear that, of top 10 should be a quarterback, a tackle, or a pass rusher. That's really it. Now, this year, we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of those guys early. But the expense of wide receivers, Justin Jefferson's going to get like $30 million a year, has made it to where if you can hit on one, even in the top 10, it's still a really good value.
Okay, I'm wondering about this with Justin Jefferson. You let Kirk Cousins go. You got Jefferson there. He's going to charge you, it's going to cost you $30 million. You're going to bring in a rookie quarterback, or maybe you have Sam Darnold there. Are you really threatening this year? What could you get for Justin Jefferson that, once again, allows you to reset everything? If you're going to draft a quarterback, now I got to reset. You got Addison there. You got a running back there. You got an offensive-minded head coach. But what do you say, look, we have the best receiver in football. We're going to keep him and help out our rookie quarterback at $30 million?
I think that's what they're going to do, because your fan base would revolt if you traded a 25-year-old best receiver in football. But that's, in your hypothetical here, if you called the Arizona Cardinals and said, hey, instead of taking a chance on the best receiver in the draft, we would trade you the best receiver in football. It's going to cost you 4 overall. The Cardinals have 27 overall, so you're probably going to want that. And I would want more than that, though. I would want more than the 2 first for Justin Jefferson, even understanding that you're going to have to turn around and pay him. So,
yeah, but I don't want to pay him $30 million. I would rather take one of these other receivers that we're looking at Dallas right now, Matt. I mean, they got to pay Dak because Jerry handled this poorly. CD Lamb should be locked up. Now he's going to cost you even more. Micah Parsons going to cost you $30 million. CD Lamb probably 25 or so. And then Dak's going to cost you $55 to $60 million a year. You can't win with
Dallas,
that.
You can't. Dallas is a poor blueprint for what anyone does. I mean, it's terrible. You could argue the 3 most important positions of football, and they have guys entering a contract year at the same time. It's not a good plan. I think Philadelphia is the model of you draft good players and you pay them early. And there's a risk. We've seen that blow up, with Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz and some of the quarterbacks. I would argue they weren't good players. They were just paid because of, sentimental value. But I think that's the idea. Is draft Devonta Smith. And when you realize he's a hit, you pay him after that 3rd year, because the salary cap is only going to continue to, go up at astronomical value. And guys are going to just want a bigger piece of that pie. So I'm with you. Do not look at Dallas. If you're an aspiring general manager, don't look at what Dallas has done, or, the New Orleans Saints, teams like that every year they're trying to scramble to figure things out because they've mismanaged either their salary cap or the way that they do their contracts.
What do you think Buffalo does?
I think Buffalo would love to move heaven and earth to get Rome Odunze. And I completely agree with this strategy. If you're Buffalo and you've gotten so close to taking over the AFC, but you can't beat Mahomes and the Chiefs, you just can't do it when it matters. So you've gotten that close. Why not go all in to try to do it? And I don't know that a pick at 28 overall is going to be the difference for them. I think now's the time. You know that you're going to be picking late in the first round every year because you have Josh Allen and you have a good coaching staff that's always going to put a good defense out there. How valuable is next year's pick number 28 or 29 overall? If you could take this year's first, next year's first, and get a Rome Odunze in the top 10 potentially. I think Buffalo is one of the few teams really where you can make that argument of you're close. You have the quarterback, you have the infrastructure. What you need is, like you were saying, Dan, you need that rookie wide receiver. You need that guy making $5 million a year who can be one of the top players at his position. So why not go for broke? What do you have to lose if you're Buffalo? You've gotten, you've had leads. You were up with 13 seconds left in Arrowhead. Like, you're there. So why not make that big play, the splash move, the Julio Jones type trade to go get a Roma Dunze?
Give me your wild prediction for tomorrow.
That would be one. The Buffalo I had a scout text me this. The Buffalo was going big game hunting when it comes to the wide receiver. So that was something that I toyed with in my final mock draft. I still think Michael Penix Jr. is one of those things, and I know you know a lot more people than I do, but it's the one thing that I can't stop hearing is that Michael Penix is going to go in the top 20. He's going to go a lot earlier than people think. So yeah. I don't know if I'm being told that so that I'll hop on the Dan Patrick Show and say it, and teams will panic and freak out that, oh my gosh, Michael Penix Jr. is going earlier. But a lot of folks are saying that to the point that it's hard to tune it out.
I heard the same thing. One of my sources who's a scout said, he just consumes football. Like, we love it. The injuries don't scare us. We loved what we saw. And I go, okay, because I'm trying to figure this out, like, who's really telling you the truth? And
right.
But I don't know if anybody reacts to this, Matt. If all of a sudden Sean Payton's going, wait, what did Dan say? Now we're going to have to go up and get him. We got to spend. I don't know if anybody, if you are reacting to what we're saying, I got real concerns, for those GMs and coaches.
But I know they, I'm not trying to brag about this. Like, they read the mock drafts because I get the calls, of like, hey, who do you have us taking? I was at Michigan's pro day and a GM came up to me, and I felt bad. I didn't recognize him because I was kind of in the moment. He's like, hey, who do you have us taking? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. I have you taking this player. And it was like, okay. And so maybe he just wanted to start a conversation that way, but I do think that I do know that they read the mock drafts and they listen to the intel, because maybe Mel Kiper has a nugget that will actually help you, know that you have to jump someone to get your player.
Good to talk to you. Know you're busy. Have fun tomorrow night. Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
That's Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst, part of ESPN's coverage